we have Isabella Bruno and Liberating Structures. Oh, getting messages, as long as everyone can hear me. Isabella Bruno is an experienced and exhibition designer at Smithsonian's National Museum of American History. In her free time, she hangs with other museum workers to imagine the future of museums through a project called Radical Museums Futures. She believes that museums offer a public service and should be designed for staff and visitor well-being in order to be around forever and be relevant. I'm going to go ahead and unmute her. I really should have done that before introducing her, but you know, so it goes.
Hey.
Isabella, hi.
I do not see the presentation yet.
You do not see the presentation yet. Okay.
Nope.
Let's try this again.
Yay.
There you go. That was your title slide. Imagine you were looking at this during the time that I introduced you.
Okay, perfect.
Are you ready to go?
Yeah.
All right, you're off.
Okay, hi everyone, I'm Isabella. I want to talk to you about my favorite facilitation method, what basically I think comes before service design. I'm a designer who works in the complex world of museum experiences, as Josef and Lisa earlier introduced. But first I kind of want to start with a little bit of a story. So 2 weeks ago, I was talking to my daughter about her senses and pointing out facial features like the nose and smell and how they correspond to different senses. One of the things that then, after we pointed them out, I was saying was that actually multiple parts of the body work together to make our senses function, right? So like noses help with our sense of taste, and touch actually helps with vision and proprioception. So it's a really simple way to actually explain how the whole is more than the sum of the parts, right? Okay, so just hold that in your head. So in a second, what's going to flash on the screen is a picture of where I work, the National Museum of American History. It's over about 100,000 square foot space, has over 20 exhibitions in any given time. It's kind of like a mall of American history. And like a mall, people are often disoriented, spend a lot of time wandering when they come in. It's not really an easy to navigate or cohesive experience. In January of this year, I started on a project that was meant to take over the entire museum, and I had to disprove that signage everywhere would become a cohesive experience. I had to basically make the case that we needed every touch point: security, cafes and bathrooms, volunteer ambassadors, maps and guides. So you can see it here with this very fancy number of touch points over message impact through time graph. I also showed it other ways. It was a special project that was intended to be visible from the entry all the way into the thematic exhibitions that we have, into individual object labels. So you can imagine a really wide range of mental and experiential states that visitors would be in. So you can kind of see in some of the images that are here, some of the different points. So there's the guides in the little blue. You see ambassadors talking to people. You see the entry where there's a security guard. Hey, Josef, I don't know why it's not flipping. Did the timing stop?
I don't know why it's not flipping either.
Like, I could just keep talking about this slide, but
it's possible that the transition wasn't applied to just one slide. Well, we'll continue.
Okay, weird. Okay. So this is just another example of how I also tried to illustrate the importance of thinking of this as a kind of cohesive experience, but also taking into account the different mental states that people would be in. And I show that image that already disappeared too quickly because we need many roles to be part of the project implementation. So sadly, this project, RIP, did not live on. And I learned through this that service design or anything like it would never be possible until there was a significant change at my workplace. In our case, it's impossible to get the people who do the security experience, the cafes and bathrooms, the volunteer ambassadors, the maps and guides, performances, exhibit labels, etc., all in the same room. So now I'm posed with, well, how do you actually get to the place where you can do that? And I think if we had used liberating structures, we could have probably pulled it together. How can I play a role in shifting the focus from things to relationships? So liberating structures is a way to do that. And I discovered actually after that project ended. It's basically conversational patterns. So you can see in this grid here 33 different images of different ways that you can structure a conversation. And it's liberating because it puts the power in the hands of the participants. It's expertless and it spreads once people are exposed to it. It sits right in between a two structured meeting, like a status report with one person asking questions, and a meeting where like there's no agenda, right? So it is distinct from conventional meetings in that way. How does it do this? So all the structures that you saw in that grid have these elements. They make space for complexity by having structure and having distributed participation. So in the top, you can see this example of an invitation. So it's a very clear prompt that everybody hears at the beginning of the conversation. And it invites people to basically reflect on their own in this example of 1, 2, 4 all, which is an activity, and then talk to another person, and then talk to 4 people, and then talk to everyone together. So that's an example, really one of the really simple structures that they have. So each conversation would build on the last. And then the other elements like steps, so people can easily wrap their head around what's going to happen next. So a few years ago, Google had a research project called Project Aristotle, where they were researching the aspects of a great team. And one of the things that they found was this idea of psychological safety, no surprise. That's like the main thing that predicts how healthy a team will be. And the behaviors were conversational turn taking and empathy are some of the unwritten rules that are needed in order to establish human bonds. And liberating structures really does this, right? So it is something that can be fun. It allows everyone to speak so everyone gets heard. It can be at any scale, a really small project to a really large enterprise experience. You can have thousands of people split into small groups and still have really good results. So it comes out of complexity science, which is the idea that, that whole is more than the sum of its parts, right? So it looks at the way that nature can have order without central control. So that's kind of one of the things that inspired liberating structures. So I just put this string together. So basically, once you start learning the different structures, what people do is they actually put them together in these larger arcs. So these will be very recognizable to you because liberating structures takes from many domains. And this is another one, but I'll just refer to the previous one a little bit, where anybody could do the previous one with simple ethnography, but doesn't have to be an ethnographer. Can do user experience fishbowl, but doesn't have to be a UX designer, right? And so that's where the power is. So I wish I could have showed you liberating structures by actually doing them. Obviously, I couldn't do that. But the great thing about it is that it's totally open source. There's no certification. It's free. All the resources to start doing them tomorrow are available to you. So here's a whole bunch of them. Josef and Lisa are going to drop it in the chat. But I guess to end, I just want to encourage and offer you the invitation to be like my daughter and think about sense making as being more than the sum of its parts. It's the whole organization, the whole body talking and listening to each other. And then maybe we'll all be able to do a little more service design. I run a facilitation community of practice for museum professionals, and I think that was dropped in the chat. And I invite you all to come and hang out with a bunch of museum people and try some of these with us. Thanks for the time, and thanks for the opportunity, Josef, to share.
Yeah, thank you so much, Isabella, for sharing with us. I think it's a great set of tools, and I love the kind of the independence, and it helps a lot of designers overcome some of the issues and frustrations that we run into sometimes when trying to use our tools in various organizations or situations.
So true. It can make you think like the tool is actually not functioning well when it's actually the setting is not there yet.
So that being said, we'll open it up to some questions in the Q&A. So feel free to text them in, or text, whatever you want to call that. Type them in.
I see one from Lori I can answer. She's asking about other ones that I like besides 124 all.
Yeah, go for it.
So I used 124 all because it's like the simplest thing you can use in literally any context. But I've also used other ones, like I almost showed you guys but didn't have time. One that I like called TRIZ, which is basically a way to identify the behaviors you should stop doing because it's literally taking you down the path you don't want to end up, and then what you should start doing in order to go into the direction you want to go in. That sounds great, right? And it's a simple one. Then there's some more complex ones like agreement certainty matrix, which is actually a framework that kind of maps out the idea of different challenges being simple, complicated, complex, and chaotic, and helps people understand that some things, there is a distinction between chaotic and complicated. Complicated is something you might need a recipe for, but it is doable, right? Complex means that there isn't a recipe, it's not easily replicable, and then chaotic is, obviously what you think it would be. So any other questions? Oh, surprising lesson learned by using
Yeah, I was
liberating
going to say, you
structures.
seem to have the chat window open, so go for it.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Surprising lesson. It just confirmed that for the longest time, I really wanted to bring service design to my organization. And once I learned about liberating structures, I realized it wasn't anything that I wasn't doing. It was that the we weren't at that phase yet. Like we definitely wouldn't be able to do it yet unless we have more healthy communication patterns. So it really just kind of validated some of the doubts that I had, I think, about my own practice.
All right. And one more question just popped in. Has the
Yeah, I'm thinking about how to answer that.
oh
I I would say, based on my experience earlier this year, they don't. I don't use terms unnecessarily, right? So like I'm not going around saying I want to do service design now, because I don't. That doesn't really. That is not necessarily incredibly inclusive. I prefer to demonstrate, let the tools kind of show their own merit. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that it is impossible to get all those roles in the same room. So I wouldn't say that it's not that people don't support it, it's that they haven't realized the potential yet. And I can't sell them on the potential yet until we are more able to communicate across departments in a healthier way. But liberating structures people love, because at the end of any liberating structures session, everyone feels more energized and they feel heard, because everyone always gets to speak. And so that's really powerful to change. We were talking about power earlier, like looking at mapping power, to change that implicit kind of rule of who gets to speak when and for how long. And liberating structure just breaks that down immediately.
all right. Well, thank you so much.